Hey there, I'm Frank, host of Reader's Labyrinth. Thank you for stopping by. Before I jump into this, I would like to give a little show update. First of all, I would like to thank my many admirers on Twitter for voting me the most boring podcast on the internet. Thank you, and I will wear the acclaim with nothing but pride. And moving forward, I will think about you. Second, I would like to say that if you've noticed on the show notes that there's been a few videos that I've been releasing called Thoughts from the Labyrinth, and this is really what this is going to be. When I first started the show, I wanted to make a show that was nothing but me sitting down and reading an author's book and then inviting the author to come onto the show and just tell us about the story. Because there's so many interviews out there where the author will come into a YouTube show or a podcast and it's painfully apparent that the person doing the interviewing has never read their book and barely knows who they are. And I apologize about my voice. The allergies here in South Carolina are absolutely hell at this time of year. So with that being said, I actually had an author on a couple of days ago, Andrew Gillsmith. In full disclosure, I had not purchased any of his work. I was unfamiliar with his stories. But I wanted to have someone on who at least had, their finger on the pulse of this ongoing conversation with artificial intelligence. And I believe that the emergence of the chat GPT formats and their future versions is only going to affect the readers and writers in very, very profound ways moving forward into the future. So that's why I had him on. But as life would have it, when you lay down a plan, when you lay down an idea, it's going to go off the rails a little bit. And what followed was me and Andrew having the most wonderful rabbit hole conversation about human consciousness, philosophy, history, really all the themes that I look for in a great story. And as we were going over this, he was telling me about the book You Just Saw Me Open. That's right. After my interview with Andrew Gillsmith, I immediately hopped on over to his Amazon authors page and I purchased me a copy, a paperback copy. And I had it shipped to my house, and I have been watching the delivery status updates. This novel, right here, hold that up for you. This seems like this is going to be pretty damn awesome. It's hitting all the highlights that I enjoy in a good novel, and I'm going to go over that in detail with you really quick. Before I just wanted to update the show, let you know that you'll be seeing more thoughts from the Labyrinth. I'm going to be doing more book reveals, kind of let you know what I'm reading, just thoughts about general things. But they're all going to have a theme attached to them. And that theme is going to be how the developments are going to, the developments in technology, that is, how that's going to influence you as a writer and especially us as readers. So without further ado, for this reader or thoughts from the Labyrinth, I would like to introduce Andrew Gillsmith's Our Lady of the Artilects. I haven't read it yet, but when I do read it, I'm going to dissect this book, come up with some questions, and I'm going to invite Andrew back on the show because I've got a lot of questions I would like to ask him about this phenomenal novel. What I'm going to do for you right now is I'm going to read out the description of the novel, and I'm going to just let you know my thoughts and what made me buy this book, what really piqued my interest in the book to begin with. So, without further ado, let's move on with it. And I'm reading from the back the description. World leaders are on edge. Artilects' next-generation androids have been reporting strange, apocalyptic visions of a lady in white. Most assume it's a hack, but when an Artilect belonging to the wealthiest man in Africa shows up at Our Lady of Nicaragua Basilica, claiming to be possessed, the stakes are raised. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there, kind of go over some stuff, just my first thoughts and opinions. First of all, the interview that I did with Andrew, he kind of touched on some of this for me. So world leaders are on edge. This is definitely going to be set sometime in the future. I'm already sold on that. I really like books that will take elements of the contemporary political landscape and then they will use logic to extend that into the future. I think that's really, really cool. So the Artilect next generation androids. So we have artificial intelligence, I'm assuming. And I'm going to assume that that's artificial general intelligence. So this is going to be something like Data from Star Trek. They can talk to you. I'm assuming that the Andrews in Andrew's world. I'm assuming that the androids in Andrew's world can interact with me, and they could definitely pass a Turing test. I'm sure if I was talking to a Artilect on another side of the screen, I wouldn't be able to tell if it's human or not. And I can only imagine the backdrop, the conversations that are going on in this world about the nature of humanity, about what is consciousness. So I'm really curious to see what Andrew's going to play with that. But they have been reporting strange apocalyptic visions. Okay, a little bit of some religious mysticism. I think a lot of contemporary commercial writing has kind of gotten away from something that Jeff Kripal told me a couple months ago, and that's the huge impact that religious mystical experiences have had on the history of humanity. And you can watch that interview that I did with Jeff. And again, I'm not trying to hype up the interview or anything, but there definitely is a strain in human history where a world leader of a government, leader of an army, leader, of an economic disruption of some type, they experience an epiphany. And then this epiphany will reach decades, sometimes hundreds of years into the future and just completely alter the course of human history. And that doesn't get talked about a whole lot. That kind of gets passed over in, I suppose, the scholarly telling of history now that's heavily reliant on primary sources and with good reason. But when our postmodern minds encounter the extraordinary, we'll often put it on the table and take anything that's paranormal off the table. Well, it's a psychological issue, mass paranoia. Well, it was seagulls, but and some of you that follow the UFO, UAP, that phenomenon will definitely get my reference there when I talk about seagulls. But a lot of the contemporary writers that are mainstream that I've seen are kind of dropping off of that, especially in the historical novels and futuristic novels. So what I like and I'm not saying that all of Andrew's author friends don't write books that are just like, or just as good as this. I mean, but just from what I've seen that's being recommended to me by the traditional publishers and on Amazon, I don't see that theme right there. So already in the first paragraph, that's not something I've seen in a whole lot of novels. So I'm going to move on here. The Vatican sends Father Gabriel Seraphine. Seraphine? I think that's a question to ask Andrew when I have him on. An exorcist who left behind a brilliant career as a neuroscientist. Okay, cool. So I'm going to kind of think about this for a little bit. So my first question is, he's definitely a Catholic. Was he a Catholic his whole life? Did he convert? Did he reconvert after falling away? Was he kind of always a priest since he was a young man and then he became a neurosurgeon or a neuroscientist? He left behind a career as a neuroscientist. Okay. So I'm expecting that Father Gabriel has a conversion story, a conversion experience. And that's going to circle back to Andrew's first paragraph up here about the apparition that the Our Lady of Artilects are having. And now that we've established that there's a Catholic background, I think we can guess what the apparition, the lady in white is going to be. So strong Catholic background. Okay. Father Gabriel used to be a neuroscientist, but he probably had a conversion. So how did he become an exorcist? Did he become a priest because he had exposure to an exorcist, to some type of demonic possession or oppression or whatever? Did he become a priest because of a conversion and then he later just kind of learned about it? So these are questions that I hope are going to be answered in these pages here. And by the way, really quick before I go on, it looks like a thick book, but it's not really. It's got really nice print. It's got very, very nice print here. So a lot of the books with the teeny print will kind of fatigue the eyes as I'm reading, but I don't think this one's going to do it. So thank you, Andrew, or whoever decided to design this. I really like that. So, a brilliant career as a neuroscientist to Benin City to investigate. I'm probably butchering that word again. Gosh, I tell you what, I need to get out of the office. The only thing I deal with are like our financial terms and whatnot. I feel like my vocabulary since finishing college has only shrunk. My ability to produce words I'm not familiar with, because once you get hard skills and once you get a job, it just seems like your world kind of shrinks down to your cubicle and your corporate talk, but whatever. The timing couldn't be worse. Rome is on the verge of reconciliation with the Chinese economic interest zone after a 50-year Cold War. And the Chinese are particularly sensitive about the so-called apparition. Well, of course, the Chinese would be sensitive about something like that. I don't know what form of government the Chinese are going to have in the world that Andrew was painting for me, but I'm just looking at Chinese economic interest zone. I'm thinking of the Japanese co-prosperity sphere that the Japanese Empire set up from, what was it, 1937 to the fall of their empire in 45. A co-prosperity zone for Southeast Asians, with the Japanese at the very top of this hierarchy and everyone else below them that they would exploit as labor. So I kind of see that. So that's something that I need to ask him. I remember Andrew referencing the Ottoman Empire, and we kind of talked about that for a little bit. So I'm definitely going to ask him about the geopolitical situation in the world if it's not totally clarified in the book. I think that's really cool. Of course, the Chinese would be very sensitive about an apparition. Going back to the first paragraph, religious epiphanies, mysticism has disrupted entire nations. It has broken apart empires in as much the same way as the rise of nationalism in the 19th century Europe, that also dismembered the Ottoman Empire, I might add. Seraphin quickly finds himself caught up in a conspiracy of global and possibly supernatural dimensions. All right, cool. I like that. We have artificial intelligence, crazy geopolitics going on. We have religious mysticism, and there is a ticking clock. There is a clock that is ticking in the background. That's cool. To discover the truth and save not only humanity, but the Artilects themselves. Okay, Andrew, where are you leaning then? Are the Artilects, are they sentient beings then? It sounds like we're getting some sympathy for the artificial intelligence here. He would probably have sympathy towards the Artilects, provided they're not writing books and replacing him. Or an Artilect could probably start a YouTube channel and talk about books that other Artilects are writing, so I could even be replaced. Someone should write a book about that. Seraphim enlists the aid of a tough as nails imperial praetor named, let's see, let me pronounce this, that I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. I'm not going to make myself look like a fool more than I already do on the world's #1 boring podcast. Their adventures take them across continents and deep into the past as they fight a centuries-old plot. Oh no, centuries-old plot. Vatican, China. What could Andrew be talking about? Could he be talking about the evil Masonic infiltration? No, I don't know. I have not read the book yet. I'm going to see exactly what he's talking about. A plot that could end humanity as we know it. I don't know if the Masons would end humanity as we know it. I'm trying to think of a plot. I can't. This is a mystery already. So we have artificial intelligence, cool geopolitics, a ticking clock. It looks like we're going to have a nature of consciousness, a nature of faith, a conversion to faith, and already he is throwing at us a plot that could end humanity. Is that a secret society, a new development in technology? I don't know, but I'm interested already. Our Lady of the Artilects is a mind-bending supernatural science fiction novel where The Exorcist meets Westworld with a light dusting of Snow Crash. I have not read Snow Crash. I'm sorry. I don't know what to compare that to. The Exorcist meets Westworld. I'm assuming Westworld is going to be the HBO production of the Android. I believe that Sam Harris had a wonderful series of podcasts called Abusing Dolores, where he talked about the ethics of artificial intelligence, what we can get away with. It was really, really neat. So The Exorcist, I'm really interested in that reference. I'm thinking of, so Our Lady of Artilects, I'm thinking out loud here. I hope I'm not making myself an ass. I think of an artifact in the beginning of The Exorcist when the I don't know if the priest was present or if that was an archaeologist. I'm going strictly off of memory here. Please don't tear me up. But they're digging below. They find the artifact of the demonic entity, whatever it was, shaped all funny and spooky and scary. So that could be a reference to The Exorcist. But Father Gabriel in this novel is also an exorcist. So I'm looking forward to that. So, long story short, actually not a short story. This is, it looks like, okay, it looks like we've got a good prologue. Looks like an epilogue. And oh my gosh. Okay. So, I don't think that Andrew's going to be getting funding. At least we know that he's not going to be in the pay of the Chinese Communist Party, the contemporary Chinese Communist Party, because they're right here. That's it. What a sad story. The Chinese are committing genocide. They have been doing this at least for the past 10 years against the Uyghurs. And I've read somewhat about that. I know they are a Turkish people, a Muslim Turkic people residing in the far eastern part of China. And I'm talking out of my rear end right now, but for an author to even reference them, to bring that up to your awareness, it kind of shows the ethics. It kind of shows what a decent freaking human being Andrew is. And that really does take bravery, because the Chinese are everywhere. They are in the ad space on Facebook, Amazon, and let's see, I'm trying to think of some other places. Because I read a blog post a while ago, and they did an experiment about people who said anything negative about the genocide that's going on in China, either in Tibet or further north. And a lot of the social media platforms were getting pushed down in search results. And they found out that the Chinese have been buying up a bunch of ad space, a bunch of SEO searches. And, it just gets really, really muddy very, very quickly. But the fact that Andrew has actually said something on that, and now that I think about it, I think he has something on his Twitter as well at the very top. I think that's very, very brave and ethical. So definitely a win for Andrew on that. And I hope that you would go and pick up Andrew's book right here. I cannot wait to dig into this. This is the meat and potatoes of Reader's Labyrinth. These are the type of books that I'm going to bury in a chest. As a matter of fact, I have a bookshelf, and because I purchased a copy of every guest I've ever had on here. I'm not going to show you it because there's a lot of trash, and I've got clothes kind of thrown around everywhere. But his book is definitely going in the chest that I'm going to bury, and I hope that long after I'm gone, when the post-apocalyptic ending of the world is past us and the next generations dig up the chest, they might find his book in there. So thank you very much for stopping in. And just to kind of wrap things up, I'm going to try and do a video like this at least once a week moving forward, of thoughts from the Labyrinth series. Truth be told, I am about 3 books behind as far as trying to get some interviews with authors in. The next book I will be having, I'll just give you a little sneak peek. It's just a sneak peek. I'm not going to talk much about it, but I do promise you every guest I have on here is going to be high quality. But to have a really good interview, I feel like the interviewer should read the book, should become familiar with the author's work, should do some online research, because I do not want to give you, the listener, an interview where I know nothing about the person. And it's just, and that puts all the pressure on the author to come up with good questions for their books. And that's not something that I want to do. I want them to come on and me bring out the best elements of their writing, of their story, so they can tell you in their own words exactly where these great ideas come from. And that's all I have for you for today. So please go out and you can join me. You can join me in this. You can purchase a copy of Our Lady of the Artilects. You can email me and comment me. And if you have any questions for Andrew, shoot me a message. I'll be glad to ask him, and I will give you full credit as well. So thank you, and have a wonderful night, day, or evening.